Hi, everyone. Welcome to the fifth session of third course. Today, we're going to talk about the lack of cognition, comprehension, and understanding of governing laws of existence, natural laws. We're going to talk about the law of relativity, the Taheri's relativity. We're going to talk about the motion and rest, action and reaction, centeredness, general centeredness of the particles, and general T consciousness emission law. Before we start, as always, let's hear some reports or any potential questions, and we start. Anyone would like to share? Do you guys have my voice on screen? Okay. So no question. Anything to share? Have you had any experience with Halgheh? Did you have any particular experience you would like to share or ask question about or anything?
Sometimes I feel like the Helgas work less better for me, and sometimes they work very well. I don't know why there's a discrepancy. I do the same thing. Do you know why, Purya?
Well, like it's not like that the Halghe works or not. It's just basically like what type of experience are we expecting to get from the Halghes? And then sorry, my apologies.
No, it's okay. For example, quieting the mind. Sometimes I have a harder time with it.
Just one moment, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. Sorry, can you ask it again?
Yeah, like for example, quieting the mind. Sakuteze, it's sometimes it takes a lot longer or harder to get there because everything falls in place once I quiet the mind. But
Yeah.
getting there
Okay.
is
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. Well, for that, the specific holiday, it's different because it really requires our cooperation and involvement. So if you don't experience, like sometimes we might have like a bitter situation, let's say like we are having less factors or external factors to think about, and the holiday might seem that it kind of works easier, but sometimes we might have more mind chatters or even get some attacks as a result of that equal opposite resistant force. But we should be more active in terms of like initiating the holiday or keeping that um, silence by insisting on remaining in that state. So it's normal that sometimes we might feel it's easier, sometimes we might feel like it's harder because there are a lot of times that we use the halve and then it might work and there would be less resistance, less external circumstances to stimulate that mind chatter. Sometimes it's not. So, and the times that it's not, it's our obligation to um, do what we need to do in terms of um, getting more involved with that, staying like doing more nazar and insisting on that. That's all, if that makes sense. Does that make
yes,
sense?
yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure. Anyone else?
Maria, can you remind us again, out of all the halves we've learned so far, which
Yeah.
one can be open for others?
Well, yeah, you've received Fardamani. That's pretty much what you can open for others so far. And you've received cosmic Hamfazi, body Hamfazi, a dichotomy scan, which they are all only for yourself, along with the silence of mind. The only thing that you could do for not others but collective is the cosmic Hamfazi that you can open in the collective consciousness, but is not like directly to someone else.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right. So let's see if, okay. So the first topic we're going to talk about is the lack of cognition, comprehension, and understanding of governing laws of existence. We believe that anything that is manifested from God is nothing but rahmat, that divine mercy, that unconditional love. And it is us, by our lack of cognition, comprehension, and understanding of the governing laws of existence, we allow the possibilities and circumstances to have certain damages or um, certain negative effects. So the term wrath of God means the lack of recognition, lack of cognition, comprehension, and understanding of that governing laws of existence and the natural laws. So in Erfan Halgheh, we put that in synonymously, which the wrath of God equals lack of cognition, comprehension, and understanding of natural laws. For example, by the lack of cognition of the necessities of earthquake, we might build houses in places that are very susceptible for earthquake, and then when that happens, it negatively affected us. That impact of destruction would be translated as wrath of God. Whereas if we would respect those boundaries and being aware of the necessities of those occurrences, then we would avoid building upon those uh, boundaries, and then that effect would not really be destructive for us, and it would be actually something that is necessary for the maintenance of ecosystem and the continuation of life on Earth. But or we could even if we decide to build on top of it, we uh, have that part of our equation, building it stronger, engineer it more appropriate to those circumstances. So then we would not be impacted by the so-called wrath of God. So it is very important for us to understand the natural laws, the governing laws of existence, because we understand that a lot of the circumstances happening in nature or in general in life are necessary, and we can avoid them by knowing these laws and um, and operating in alignment with those, which will result better, harmonious life, more healthy, and less of those negative impacts. So the wrath of God has a specific way that it operates. So the wrath of God is lawful, purposeful, and it operates based on certain operations, based on certain programming. And when the natural laws are not respected, the way that we operate our behavior in the universe, then we would be negatively impacted. And that basically translates as a wrath of God. So in truth, the wrath of God is basically a punishment that naturally and organically occurs as a result of not abiding by and not abiding and playing by the rules of natural laws, the divine rules that God put in place for the order of the system of existence. For example, the lack of cognition, um, understanding of certain laws. For example, let's say if you're not being mindful of how much oxygen we use, how much CO2 we produce, then we can cause the melting of the glaciers at the poles, resulting in Noah's storm, and a storm that wiped us all off the earth, and it would basically cause a disaster. And that could translate as a wrath of God, but that's not because God likes to punish us. It's because the humans didn't play by the rules of the laws governing the existence, didn't respect those boundaries. They weren't mindful about these rules, and then that organic consequence of those actions would be the reflection of those negativity of the operation, which would be a lawful, orderly reflection of wrath of God, consequently negatively impacting humans. In all the divine books from prophets, humans were invited to give a very deep thought about the book of existence, or that Zalik al-Kitab reference in Quran, which basically means that book, which refers to the book of existence. Maybe one of the biggest sins of humans on earth and in life in general is that coming to this life and leaving it without knowing these rules of this book, the governing laws of existence, without questioning why we are here, what are we doing, how should we operate harmoniously with these laws and harmoniously with existence, nature, and understanding these principles and this fundamental rules of existence that is one of the uh, found it's one of the fundamental principles of the book of existence, this evident book of divine, the illuminating book, that we could extract all this knowledge from those books, which would resolve that lack of cognition, understanding of these rules, and consequently acting as such to bring forth the negative reflection, the wrath of God. So a lot of these problems that comes, it's rooted in our worldview, and it can cause even physical, mental, and psychological problems, as you know. We can review some of these laws of existence and learn about them. We discuss few of them, and I encourage you to read the book of Dr. Taheri, Human Worldview. In this book, you can read all the natural laws, and there are all other topics that is very helpful. And most of the material that I taught in this course is from that book. So I encourage you to go and read it after you went through the course. Is a good read. It's short, but it just puts it all together and has this flow that it's a um, good book to read, and I highly suggest you to read it again, especially after this course. So one of these laws is the law of relativity. This governing law of existence is emphasizing on the fact that everything is relative and we don't have absolute of one thing in this world. For example, if I ask you, if you eat the poison that kills the mice, is it beneficial or not? or if I ask you whether Satan is bad. So some of these answers to these questions are typically no. And let's say if I ask you like, is it eating the poison mice good? The answer is no. Satan is bad. Yes, it's bad. So these are typical answers. But by understanding this law, we realize that is not as simple as we can give that answer because it's relative. And we're gonna really discuss how that's relative, for example, in those examples. So in terms of the mice, as one of the bases of sexual disease medicines is based on that poison, the mice poison. And in fact, the way that it was founded was there was a doctor that gets this sexual disease and sexually transmitted disease, and he wants to suicide, so he takes some mice poison, and then it turns out he doesn't die, and then he realizes that the illness is actually got improved, and he started realizing, well, the only thing that I took was the mice poison, and that actually becomes one of the basis for the sexually transmitted illnesses medicine. Or if we ask like whether Satan is bad, we know that the existence of Satan was necessary for the duality world to exist. Our challenges is defined by the existence of Satan. Our path of Kamal is defined by the existence of Satan, as well as its value is dependent on existence of Satan. So knowing these laws of relativity, it helps us to be in peace, which is one of the importance and significance of second course that we went through, and we got the Halgheh of cosmic Hanfazi, which is supposed to help us. Part of it was supposed to help us with the acquiring the peace with everything in existence, and that being the evil part of existence, the satanic part of existence, the negative aspects of or disordered aspects of existence. So by the understanding of the principles of relativity, it helps us to get closer to that peace. And then by encountering the small and bigger problems in our life with being by being equipped with such a worldview, relativity-based worldview, then we don't allow those relativity to negatively impact us. So some of these examples of the relativity is relativity of good and evil, and the relativity of ownership, and relativity of beauty and ugliness. So let's talk about the relativity of good and evil. So the example I just gave you, if whether Satan is good or bad, the answer was relevant to the relativity of good and evil. We know that Satan is bad, but we can't really definitely and absolutely say that, because then that means that there is nothing good about the existence of evil, which is not good, which is not true. So essentially, this worldview, it's absolute viewing or definite viewing worldview, which can causes a lot of antagonism, conflict, and opposition with some principles of existence or parts of existence, which disturbs the peace within and compromises inner qualities that is essential in the path of Kamal. So for this reason, examining some of these examples allow us to understand the necessities of existence of these phenomena, and then being equipped by relativity viewing of the existence, it allows us to uh, develop more sublime worldview, which allows us to get closer and closer with peace, as I mentioned. So the existence of certain aspects has this dual parts. One part, it represents good, and one part it represents evil, and then that it's relative. So another example is that another example that we can approach with the relativity viewing perspective is that without the existence of anti-Kamal, then the Kamal doesn't have value. Without the existence of Satan and overcoming those temptations or those deviations within, this sublimity and growth would not be possible. So if Satan wouldn't exist, then Kamal wouldn't exist. Overcoming certain obstacles wouldn't have definition. Um, Reaching to the peak of the Kamal mountain and achieving sublimity and spiritual growth would not have any definition. So Satan becomes a testing mean for humans to become a framework to challenge and determine the level of the human's sublimity and Kamal. So the test that comes from it, it gives definition in relationship to the perseverance of the individual, persistence, the enthusiasm toward Kamal, sublimity, the level of sacrifice, so on and so forth. So it gives the motion of human being in the path of Kamal value. Therefore, the existence of Satan has a direct role in our Kamal journey. And if the Satan wasn't existing, and if the Satan was not created by God, then finding God or being in the path of God would not have any value or definition. So that's one approach. From another approach is that if we assume Satan as an absolute bad, then the creator of bad would be himself, which basically is a definition of shirk. In this argument, the absolute good would be the creator of good, and then in its opposition, it would be the creator of evil, which it basically puts Satan to the same level of God, and that's basically a definition of uh, um, the definition of shirk and polytheism. So the positive consciousness network, or Gabriel or Jibreel, is also not absolute good, because based on law of relativity, anything within existence is not absolute. So the positive network for the people that are operating under the positive network is good, and based on a certain mechanism of macro and macro law, which is a reference from Quran, is that if a person becomes an enemy of this network, and they make a covenant with a negative network, then they would start to have many problems and attacks and issues. And that's because as a result of the positive network. So the positive network is not just pure good, because it can also cause problems for the people that are openly and make a openly fight against good, or make a covenant with negative intelligence network. Or another example that I just gave, if the mice poison is good or bad, I already explained you that also has some benefits that we're not aware of. It's contextual, is relative, so we can't really just make that bold statement that it's absolutely bad. So one of the factors that causes human beings to be deviated toward multiplicity orientation is absolute viewing. For example, we might set aside a lot of our friends in our life because of this view, or let's say our partners or colleagues or job or many circumstances we might uh, we might let go or set aside because we are equipped by this absolute viewing worldview, which makes us expect things to be absolutely perfect. And that doesn't allow us to be forgiving or accepting things as not as they are, and expect them to always be perfect or absolute, and that basically causing us to cause separations, and a lot of these separations are based on this absolute viewing. So to the time that we are not resolved this worldview, that we should not expect everything to be absolute, we would have those problems and we would run into these issues. And we are not able to actually enjoy the good part of those people or a company, enjoying their company and support their good parts, because we are basically for more focusing on the negative parts and expecting them to be all perfect and absolutely good in all the ways. Another natural law is the relativity of ownership. Let's make an example. So if someone asks us if the hand that we have is owned by us, like if we own our hand, our own hand, by definition, it seems like it's our hand and it's in service of us. We do things with it, but can we say that is it ours or not? Typically, we would say yes. Or how about our car? We have the car registered under our name, or let's say our clothing or our computer or things that we have. We always might say like, yes, we own it, it's ours. In a way that we are so sure that it's ours and all the time, but that's not the case. We have times that someone loses their hand, or loses their car, or their car is stolen, or they need to they go through the process that they go through the events that they lose something. Let's say a house is on fire and they lose their house. So the ownership is also relative. So we need to pay attention to that we are owning things apparently. On an apparent level, we owning things, and does not matter if you have papers for it or if it's attached to us. That's uh, that's ours for now, and the um, this is a principle that is dominant by this natural law of relative ownership. And that basically makes individuals understand that everything that they have, it's just gifted to them temporarily, and that's for a purpose. And until they have it, they can enjoy it and use it and take advantage of it in a good way. Uh, but one day they might not have it anymore, and they need to just have this awareness that once they lose it, so their entire life is not broken to pieces and they're not completely paralyzed internally and externally. So one of the biggest abilities that one individuals can have, and one of the spiritual levels that one can achieve through the experience of life and in the Kamal journey, is the ability to lose and still be in a positive state and carry on with life and not compromising the Kamal path for the things that they lost. The lack of equipment with this worldview would cause individuals to go under enormous amount of stress, anxiety, depression, and all sorts of other illnesses as soon as one of these important factors, whatever that is for individuals, is lost by them. So being equipped by the worldview that everything is temporary ours, then we are able to actually be ready to lose them at any moment and be fine with it and be able to be in a positive state, remain in a positive state, and be able to keep going in our life and not compromising our Kamal path and our positive state. Any question? Okay. The next law we're going to talk about is the relativity of beauty and ugliness. If we human beings look the outside world, the material world, and categorize things as beautiful and ugly. And of course, it's subjective. But in truth, the entire existence doesn't have any definition of beauty and ugliness on itself, in and of itself. It is the human being that gives definition, categorization, names to the outside world. And these specific definitions, these assumptions, the specific and particular approaches, categorizations to the outside circumstances and outside phenomena in existence is something that only comes from human being. Otherwise, in nature, there is no such a thing as beauty and ugly for any parts of existence. And we are the one who is giving those definitions to it. So the definition of beauty and ugly is something that human give to anything around. Like someone might, and it's of course subjective as well. It's like someone might find, like, let's say a reptile beautiful, and someone might be terrified on it and find it very ugly. Someone might find a bug or an insect very beautiful, but someone else's might find it like not really like ugly, or even be disgusted by it. So um, this is also a view that it can cause a lots of illnesses and disorders for individuals and oppositions, because by going to that negative state, encountering those phenomena and not seeing the face of beloved in those, we can have all sorts of negative aspects of existence affecting us negatively, as well as producing poisons within our body on a hormonal level, or on a nervous system, and so on. Any question on that? Okay. Does anyone need a break, or are you good? Our class is relatively short today. The material is not a lot. So if you needed a break, let me know, because we have time. Or if you wanted to discuss something, also let me know, because we have time. The next law we're going to talk about is motion and rest. And this law, again, a lot of these laws are discussed in the book of Human Worldview, so I really encourage you to read it on your own as well. And if you later on come up with any question, you can always come back and ask, and I'll be happy to answer. So the next law we're going to talk about is the law of motion and rest. When we look at in the sky, what we see, the stars and planetary systems, the planetary objects, are appearing in rest. But what is actually happening is they're moving, but you don't see them. You assume that they're still, they don't have any destination, they don't have any place to go, and they're just there. It appears that they are just present, and the purpose of their creation is to just be, and not for other purposes. Because what we observe is that peaceful stillness that we observe in the sky, that kind of appears that they didn't have the beginning or the end. So, but this is where we now know that all these objects are actually moving, and they're moving quite fast. And despite of this fast movement, we see them still in the sky. All the parts of existence are appearing the same. From a table in front of you, for a tree that you look at, they're all appearing still, but they are consisted of trillions of electrons orbiting around the nucleus and forming that solid object. So we see from one level, they're looking very still, but from the other view, we see that there are very, very fast and many, many motions. So this message that we can see from this objects around us is that presence that they have, kind of announcing their presence, and this going toward the destination, it's a signs of being as well, and it has this peaceful message, and that stillness gives us this peaceful message that in their innate level, their optimal goal is their presence in the space, and arriving at certain destination doesn't have necessarily any definition or meaning, and um, is just an aspects of it. It goes back to that principle of goals and means, and the principles of the journey and the destination, that we should not sacrifice the um, journey for the destination. So that there's a very short poetry. It says like, um, um, it says that the beach is just a reason, going is arriving, is basically saying that the main reason, or the main reason behind going to the beach, is the journey itself and not arriving at the beach. So representing that aspect that we should not really sacrifice the journey for the destination, is also uh, the importance of presence, that existence itself. So any phenomenon in existence has a message for human beings, and a message that the peaceful motion, that infinite peaceful motion of planetary systems and objects in the space and other parts of existence, we can learn that way of life, being present in this moment. It teaches that impatient human being of stillness and peace, that even though that they're moving very fast, but they're also very present and still. And in every moment that is following another moment, we utilize that with the highest qualities, which is presence and being. And that becomes the so-called cached heaven, or cached paradise, is an expression used in Sufism and Erfan poetry, that it's like a paradise that a person just constantly waiting for to get, and it's kind of like something that it's supposed to come sometime later, whereas cached paradise is like something in your hand and it's just like there, so you don't need to really wait for it or plan for it or anything like that, so you're in it. It's not something that you need to invest in it to get something in return, but it's something that it's in your hand, cashed and available. And that's a kind of, and that's the metaphor of cashed paradise, as opposed to a paradise that you need to invest on, so you get at some point in the future. From another point, when we look at the parts of existence, if you pay attention carefully, contrary to their peaceful presence, in their heart, they have this fast and rapid movements, and uh, it's representing a very strange phenomena of this duality in a form. The cosmos in actuality and apparent level, it's in stillness, but in truth and in its batin, that innate level, it has that dynamic and fast motions and constant uh, motion. We know that the behavior of human being is not aligned with the book of existence, with this manual of the manual and the guide of human beings. And that's why we have so many problems from anxiety, depression, restlessness, and so on and so forth. Humans, contrary to existence, have a very um, apparent level dynamic dynamism, that the apparent level fast motions, that they're constantly moving and going around, but then in their truth they don't really pay attention to that motion within. And that motion within is very important for the philosophy of existence, the fulfillment of that philosophy of existence. For a human being, uh, synchronicity, harmony, and handfuzzy with existence is very essential. And we should be able to learn that framework and align ourselves with that, so we can stop the issues that arises as a result of its lack, its absence. One of the consequences of modern life is that artificial excitement and overstimulation of rapid movements and fast and apparent level constant on the go motion, that is as a result of the lack of harmony with the motion and stillness, motion and rest law of nature. Not only in time and in the universe, we are opposing the existence, but we are also opposing the existence in the way of being, as I mentioned, and that also has its own type of wrath of God. This overstimulation, this rush of a modern life, causes human beings to have mental and psychical issues, and people, which would lead to physical problems as well, and it can have irreversible damages to our existence. It could be from stress, lack of sleep, digestion problems, many different disturbances and interruptions and such, that causes illnesses and disorders. Any question? Okay. The next law we're going to talk about, it's the law of action and reaction, or also known as karma. This is different than, of course, the law of reflection. People hearing the law of reflection first, sometimes they mistaken it by karma, but that's different. So you learn the law of karma here, which we call it the law of action and reaction. In the world of existence, any action has its equal opposite reaction, whether it's a physical action or it's a quality action. This law is one of the laws of duality world, and it causes it responds to any type of actions, whether that's a physical actions or on a thought level. So it brings the consequence of any type of action, and it reflects that to us. So the existence is like a mountain that when we talk, or when we, let's say, scream, that sound will travel and then return to ourself and has this resonance, and then it bounce back and we hear ourselves. It's like a garden that we harvest what we plant in. Any individual would plant good, then they would harvest good, and then vice versa. So we receive our consequence of our actions, whether again in a physical level or on a quality level, and each individual is responsible for them. So none of the actions of individuals is without response, hidden or apparent. Anything that is happening has a consequence, whether it's physical or on a quality level. some of these responses is instantaneous and some of it takes time. And this instantaneous response aspects of existence is referenced in Quran as Wallahul Sari'ul Hisab, which means that Allah is calculating very quickly. It basically instantaneously resolving. And that is, for example, if someone goes to a negative state, bottle up emotions, then they develop illnesses, their immediate body response is production of unhealthy and poisonous chemical chemical production within the body, resulting issues. The commands of the instantaneous commands of brain would cause the production of those poisonous chemicals, and it would have negative consequences. There's other part of responses of existence which is more time consuming, and this part is it operates like a wave and with a delay. It's like when you drop a stone, when you drop a rock in the water, and then you see these waves go travel far away, and then it hits the edge of the river or the lake, and then it bounces back. It comes to that point, so it takes some time. For example, let's say maybe individuals would be rude to another individual, let's say their partner, and then they leave the house and then they go and then they have someone else's um, going through difficult times, and then this rapid effect just goes back to the individual. So all these continuous actions of uh, harshness would be transferred to another individuals, another individuals, another individuals, and back to the same individuals that just started it. And that could lead to a society back to the same person as well. So the law of karma or action or reaction is a reflection of individuals' action physically or on a quality level. It will come back to the individual in two-way, instantaneous and time-consuming way, which is also linked with the law of reflection, which is based on the enthusiasm of individual, whether it's positive or negative, and then having that reflected on a collective and individual level by the positive and negative administrators of God, the agents of God. Any question? Okay. The next law we're going to talk about is the law of centeredness. Any point can be the center of a time or a space in the universe. By examining how Big Bang happened, we can conclude that all the particles in existence could be the center of the existence, the center of the universe. The Big Bang is the bedrock of um, the occurrences that led to the formation of the particles and this physical material universe that we know. All the particles could be considered as the center of the universe. So for everything that exists, every particle in the existence could be that center. So the starting point of Big Bang, which was as a result of condensation and extreme contraction of the matter, and then an explosion. As well, every particle in the existence can also be the center of time, which means that time-wise, let's say it would be split in a half. It could any particle could be that center of the time. For example, the light that we see that comes to the Earth today, it's related to thousands of years ago. And a lot of these stars that we see, they actually don't exist right now, and they're already like exploded and dead many years ago. And what we see is the light of their explosion belonging to them for hundreds of thousands of years ago. Therefore, no one is observing the present time. Everyone is surrounded by past. Even me talking to you, despite the fact that you're talking with distance, but even if I was in the same room, it would, for my sound to arrive at your ear and be processed, there's some time. It's short for us, but there is still time. So as soon as you hear me, that actually doesn't belong to the present time and is already past. So us being in the present time, it's something very strange because we are constantly surrounded by past. So everything in the entire existence could be the center of the time as well. So we can conclude that any point in the existence not only is the center of existence physically, but also center of time. Do you have any question? The other law we're going to talk about is the centerness of the law of general centerness of particles. This law states that innately there are no particles that would be superior to another particle. There is nothing in existence that would be superior to another thing on an intrinsic level. There is no particle on a consciousness level that would have any difference between another particle. Consequently, from a T consciousness perspective, everything is divine. Anything in terms of any spaces, any times, anything that exists in the universe on an intrinsic level, all are the same. There's no special place, special time, special particle. Everything on an intrinsic level are equal and the same. And that also goes to the unity of existence because everything is a part of God and there's no part or particle that we can separate and say that this is worse than the other because they're all parts of one divine existence, and that's the existence of God. So as we mentioned, on the intrinsic level, there's no difference between anything. The law of centerness, general centerness of particles is talking about that intrinsic level of particles and spaces and times and etc. We have some structures, let's say Kaaba, that is made uh, as a representing the house of God. And because of the T consciousness, monotheistic T consciousness surrounding uh, that place, and also the moment that it was being built by Abraham, it has acquired uh, difference. So there's this um, innate value, or we have an acquired value. So the innate value is the same, but acquired value is different. For example, even though that there are no intrinsic difference and there are no intrinsic superiority among two different places, let's say a casino and a house of God, but there are some acquired differences based on the T consciousness present there on between those places. Let's say a casino and let's say Kaaba or a church or something like that. Any question? Okay. So the last law we're going to talk about tonight is the law of general T consciousness and the unity of the existence information, or the equality of equality, the principles of equality of existence information. This law states that in the heart of every particle in the existence, the T consciousness of the whole is hidden. For example, in the heart of one cell, the entire information of the world exists, as well as the entire information of the Inna lillah wa inna ilaihi raji'un cycle, which is dipolar universe cycle. However, this T consciousness is not manifested, is not actualized, and it is only a potential. In every atom, there is a small world, a small existence. In the heart of one atom, the entire existence exists. It's the principles of microcosm, macrocosm. The world inside a particle, the information within a particle equals the information of the totality of the existence. So in the creation of cosmos, the creation and genesis of life, through a precise and magnificent design and creation, there are a lot of thoughts put toward every little part of it that is very precise and very wonderful, very uh, calculated and well thought. This wonderful design, this magnificent design, is programmed in such a way that all the information of the entirety of the world, it is hidden in a particle. And the reason of such a phenomenon is based on the interuniversal perspective, the perspective that is also underlying Faradarmani, that the entire physical material world is created from T consciousness. And because T consciousness not is not quantifiable, we cannot divide it into parts. Therefore, the T consciousness of a part is equal to the T consciousness of a whole. Consequently, the entire information of existence has to be within a particle as well. With this explanation, which is a brief explanation, we Dr. Taheri named this the principle of equality of information of the existence. This is a rough translation, it might change, but that's as best as I can get right now. So in Farsi, we call it Asle Hamsani Etelat Jahan Hasti. Hamsani is like equality or synchronicity. I wouldn't say synchronicity because there's some connotations with synchronicity that that's not. So that basically means that there's same information within all the parts of existence. So there's no difference between parts and a whole information. The only difference is that what is manifested, but the information itself, it's always there and is always there, and it exists equally. So based on that, the entire information of the whole, it's hidden in a particle, and from that we can conclude that the T consciousness existing in a part equals the T consciousness existing in the whole. The hidden information within a particle, the entire information of the physical material world, is categorized in certain information. Let's say, let's discuss about the cell. Let's consider a cell. We can say that a cell is a collection of many molecules, and each molecule is consisted of atoms, and each atoms is also consisted of electrons and nucleus and so on. And each of these particles, it's just like a flash memory that contains that fundamental information of the entire existence. With this comparison, we can understand that each cell contains a massive information. And in Faraday, the hidden information within the cell in regards to life is categorized as such. The first category of cells information is related to the information of the cell itself, the function of the cell, the cell's function program, and cell recovery program, and cell diagnosis program. So these are the information that is related to the cell itself. The second categories of information is information that is related to the organ that the cell is belonged to. And The third part of information is information that is related to the body of human. The fourth information is information about the human species. The fifth information is information related to other species, including plants, animals, humans, etc. And the sixth category of information is related to the communal uh, species, communal life of a species, which is like germinal period of life. And the seventh category of information is information related to the genesis of life. That's like a very elementary stages of life. Before, we had the reference of seven skies, which is a metaphor of seven different categories of information within that cycle of Inna Lillah wa Inna Ilaihi Raji'un, the cycle of duality world, the dipolar universe cycle. From this perspective, the seven skies representing the seven categories of information within a cell that we just discussed, and each cell not only contains all the information of the body, but also information about the human species and information about uh, the entire universe. Now, do you have any question or question? Okay. The entire body, each cell within the body contains the information of entire existence. Uh, even each cell that contains within the body. Let's say for a woman, even an oval uh, contains the information, not only the information of the body, but also information of a sperm of the partner. So there is this interesting phenomena that we will discuss in Scientology about the phenomena of the parentless parent, which basically explains how a birth like a birth of Jesus can happen. Uh, a birth that can happen without the conception, without the sexual interaction. And the concept lays within the idea of the oval has the information of a sperm within itself, and if is able to access the information of the sperm and utilize it, it's able to actually form a fetus itself without having to have that physical sperm introduced to the mother. So that's something that we will discuss later in depth. Is just something fascinating that I couldn't not share. We will discuss about it more in depth in Scientology. Anyone have any question? Okay. If you don't have any question, this is it for the theoretical material for this class. Let's do a 15 minutes etisal, and then we will be back if you have any question or if you want to share anything. And then that's it. Thank you.